This is Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Here is Louis Butko.
Yes, the show is Speaking with the Enemy. The enemy this week, the Toronto Argonauts. And to discuss that, we bring in our friend Mike Hogan, which is really an oxymoron. Speaking with the enemy, bringing in my friend. Hoagie, thanks for doing this as always. I just want to get your initial thoughts on week one of the CFL. Obviously, the Argos had the bye week. Big celebration coming up on Sunday we'll get to, but just your overall assessment on what you saw week one, Ticats specific and then league-wide.
I think league-wide, it looked like, a lot of starters playing in their first game. There was a lot of sloppy football, which I think is to be expected. I think 4 exhibition games or preseason games like they do in the NFL is too much. 2 is probably too few, so I don't know how you do 3 with one team having to play home. So there's no perfect solution. I think most coaches are terrified of losing their starters in a preseason game, which has a lot to do with it. So it's practice. You hope you don't get injuries in practice, which everybody does. But players, everybody here held their breath in the first preseason game in Hamilton when Curly Gittens went down in the first series. If that had been a serious injury, that just kind of underscores what coaches want. So I think for the most part, there was a lot of sloppy football. There were some great plays, but there was quite a bit of slop in there as well.
Yeah, and I guess, to that point, when you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and you have so many pieces from last year coming back, it's easy to dominate those first 20 minutes of a football game that we saw, and that really took away from, I think, what the Cats did the rest of the way. What did you make of the Ticats' performance against Winnipeg, and how are you expecting them to bounce back against the Argos?
I thought it was an interesting approach because I guess when we're used to Dane Evans, you're used to the quick release, the short stuff over the middle, and then Bo strolls in, and Bo looked like Bo. And maybe this goes back to our first discussion point. Maybe later in the season, he's hitting those deep balls that weren't hit early. Was that a question of guys just not being on the same page, or Bo not used to the speed of the receivers, or the receivers not used to Bo? Maybe that happens later in the season. Hopefully, from an Argo perspective, it doesn't happen on Sunday. But, I think, from an offensive perspective, we're going to see a little bit more of that from the Ticats this year. So, the Argos better be prepared for that on Sunday.
Let's talk about those Argos. A week one bye, obviously, it's one of those weird situations. Some teams got to take it. How did they approach that last week of training camp into that first bye week into week 2? I mean, that is a tough transition. Like, it's a tough transition from training camp to regular season. Then you throw a bye week in between. What did the Argos do to adjust to the situation?
They had a couple of day A's, as it were, when they were able to do that, just to make sure there was no rust. They did I don't know if the plan was to go on the field during the downpours a couple of days ago. But they did a lift inside. So it's, a lot of film work, a lot of resting up from the nicks and, the sore legs after 2 days, essentially. Guys' legs, they're dragging it at the end of camp. So from that perspective, it's a good thing. From a continuity perspective, you wish you could get right into it as opposed to having that break. So there are pros and cons to every bye week. I guess maybe the best bye week is if you've had a really bad game and just want to flush everything and press the reset button. But for the Argos in week 1, it's get your legs back after camp. There's another advantage where we've seen what Hamilton did in week 1. The Ticats don't know what the Argos are up to because, nobody shows anything during preseason games. It's about as vanilla as it can get. So there's a little bit of an advantage there, but the Ticats have played a game where the Argos haven't. So, how much rust is going to be there, and sort of that discontinuity, if that's a word, that we saw from most of the teams in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that first real hit you have to take or give in a regular season game. Ticats have gotten all that out of the way. Argos, not that there's any hesitation. These guys hit each other for a living. Let's talk about the big news this week. Jamal Peters coming back. Obviously tried his hand at the NFL, cut by the Falcons, but what a huge get, I guess we can call him. But having him back, just go into what Jamal Peters brings to that defense.
Well, I think the Ticats know what he brings because he had 5 picks in 2 games against the Ticats. So I think we know about the ball hawking ability. He's just so long. He's 6'3" in his arms. I don't know if he has to bend over to tie his shoes, right? Like he's just that guy. He's quick, not fast. Like if you timed his 40, it wouldn't be great, but with that length and his intelligence, he can make up for that. So he's really a machine over at the boundary corner, and that looks after that position. So I assume he'll be up and good to go. I don't know for sure. As we speak, he's just ready to get on the field for the first time, and he knows the system. The coaches know him, and that's another advantage the Argos have this year is the entire coaching staff was back, which especially on a championship team, that doesn't happen very often because there are usually teams that are going to poach and say, okay, he did it really well over there. Let's go get him to do it with us. But that's a big advantage for the Argos. Corey Mace, they know what they're getting. The DB's coaches, everybody's cool with that. So he knows what to do. They know what to expect out of him. So it should be an easy transition.
Mike Hogan, our guest here on Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Hoagie, let's stick with this week 2 idea. But the home opener, I don't think there's a moment better for Chad Kelly to run onto the field for his first career pro start here, basically as the guy. What are you expecting? How is he going to handle the situation? I know he talks a big game, but behind the scenes, what have you seen from him?
He's fine. He'll be fine. If there were any worries, I think those have been alleviated. He came in and took over. I had a discussion with him during camp where we just after one of the practices went off into one of the offices and put the phone in the middle with the recorder on and just talked. And the one thing that he talked about is how this year he's kind of even changed everything about his regimen, when he goes to bed, what he puts into his body and in terms of nutrition. He's really, really taking this responsibly. A, it's an opportunity to start. And B, let's face it, I think everybody in their 20s, especially with his background and family background, for those who don't know, Jim Kelly's his uncle, growing up in that shadow, but he wants to play in the NFL. Like he had the taste with Denver, he had the taste with Indianapolis. No kid in the United States grows up, dreaming of being an Argo or a Ticat, right? They want to play in the NFL. If that is his goal, if he gets back there and in the interim wins a championship with the Argos this year, that's win-win. But he is focused, he's dedicated, he's looked good in practice. I think he had one bad practice day in 3 weeks. And the next day he bounced back and was spectacular. So he's ready to go. If there are any questions in this roster right now, I don't think there's one at QB1.
Hoagie, the home opener on Sunday Night Football. I actually love this. And I think, I think TSN saw some of the ratings last year from these Sunday night games. You as somebody, you and I have had this conversation about getting people in the building, building that routine. What was that effort like this offseason? How different was it now that you had a championship you could advertise? And again, you and I have talked about the fact that you're going after a different audience. How is that going here into this new season?
It's been good. Season ticket sales are up again substantially. The renewal rate this year was incredible. Like people who went last year bought season tickets, virtually all of them came back. Like it was they set a really high bar in terms of renewal goal and blew it out of the water. So that's good news. So from a business standpoint, it's still slow. Like we're so far behind other teams in terms of season ticket holders. We're trying to build on that. And, hopefully people are going to look at this and say, okay, Sunday night, we'd be home watching the game anyway, but we got our Saturday stuff out of the way. We got our Sunday stuff out of the way, and we can still go and do a tailgate for dinner beforehand and then go to the game. I hope people get into that, and that becomes a habit across the league. I mean, the Sunday Night Football thing is something that TSN is really excited about. And when you look at the ratings for Sunday Night Football in the States and in Canada from football fans watching Sunday Night Football, it was worth the risk. Hopefully it doesn't hurt teams at the gate. There is a risk of that, obviously, especially, after, in the summer, there won't be the Sunday night after Labor Day because the NFL is back. Yeah. But in the summer, with the kids not having to go to school the next day, I think it's worth the gamble. And let's see what is there. And maybe this is something that does become a thing on this side of the border as well.
Now, obviously, we know it's going to be a great atmosphere, anytime these two teams face off at BMO Field. Of course, Ticats fans so good at traveling down the QEW. I've seen the joke. I mean, like there's a lot of Ticats fans who are going to walk into BMO and be handed a replica Grey Cup ring, Hoagie. I'm sure that wasn't the intention to rub it in Ticats' faces. It may have been, but talk about these replica rings that are being handed out on Sunday.
Let me just say that we were going to do it the first game anyway, But when the schedule came out and the Ticats were on it, I don't think there were many tears shed on this side. It just adds a little fuel to the fire. The rings are spectacular. I don't know if you've seen the real ones or not. The replicas are so close to the originals. They're gorgeous. Sometimes you see a team wins a championship ring and they get these big gaudy rings that don't look good and you can't wear them. These are actually really nice, stylish rings that guys are going to wear, I think, a little more readily than some of the other ones that have been around. And for fans to get these, they're well made, they're heavy. It's not like a cheap plastic thing. These are really nice. And I hope that, if Ticat fans don't want anything double blue anywhere in their house, that they can find an Argo fan either to pass this on to or, make a deal with one. Hey, I'll give you this ring if you buy me a new Ticat hat or something like that. Do some tradesies, a Bard or something like that. But these are really nice. It's going to be a really nice ceremony before the game. Chance to see the championship banner, the rings come out. There was part of everybody here wanted to make it a 35-minute long celebration video and make the Ticats stand there for it. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a nice short video. Ticats come out after it's over, so they don't have to sit through it. We'll make the offer to Jagarrett and to Chris Edwards to come out if they'd like to be a part of it. It's I think it's going to be a nice, tasteful ceremony. So Ticat fans won't have to sit there for too long and take the slings and arrows. And maybe, it's fuel to the fire with the Grey Cup being played in Hamilton this year for Ticat fans to make sure they have their tickets for that game.
Well, if anything, if the forecast holds, it's going to be a beautiful night at BMO Field on the shores of Lake Ontario for yet another chapter in the historic Ticats Argonauts rivalry. Mike Hogan, the show, speaking with the enemy, but you, of course, are my friend. So thanks for doing this as always. Appreciate it.
We are frenemies on game day.
There it is. Thanks, Hoagie. And my thanks to Mike Hogan for joining me today. You can catch another episode of Speaking with the Enemy as part of Tiger Cats pregame. And that is coming up ahead of the game on Sunday. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff, 6 o'clock. Bob O'Neill, Andy Fantus on the air. And, of course, RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker will have the call at 7. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm back next week on an all-new Speaking with the Enemy from all of us here at the Ticats Audio Network. Have a great day.